The way to go up isn't to put yourself up above everybody else and step on them as you climb the corporate ladder of leadership and success. The way to get to the top is actually to go to the bottom and to serve and lift and elevate everyone else. What's up, guys? We are here today to talk about leadership. Now, I know I may have heard a collective groan because you've probably watched 500 videos on leadership and what a good leader is. But I think today you're going to discover something a little bit unique, a little bit different take on leadership. But in order to do that, we're going to need to hop in a time machine and go back to the Hamilton dinner table in the late 80s. And you see, in the late 80s, we didn't have Vortex. We were hardly even in the optics game. My parents owned and operated a Wild Birds Unlimited store. Now, that's a small mom and pop store. We had one store that was part of a larger franchise. That franchise is still going today. In fact, their store is still going today, although they did sell it after 21 years. But it's still going, and they're still great customers of ours. But back then, everything was about that Wild Birds Unlimited. And often at the dinner table, the conversation would spill over into business. Now, it took many forms. It could be on, traffic changes that were happening that might affect how many people could get into the store and how easily. It might be a fall seed sale that we were having. Or in this particular case, on this particular night, it had to do with conversations that my parents, as business owners, were having with other Wild Birds Unlimited business owners. Okay? And in particular, a piece of advice that business owners get all the time was the topic of conversation. In fact, if you've ever owned a business or you've read a lot about owning a business, you're going to hear this piece of advice a lot, to the point where it's almost a commandment. It's not, but that's how people talk about it. The piece of advice is this: pay yourself first. Pay yourself first. And what that means is when your business is generating revenue, you have all of these obligations that you need to pay. You need to pay your employees, you need to pay the landlord, you need to pay your vendors. Those are the brands that are selling you product and you're putting it out in your store. Okay? And what they're saying is you pay yourself first, and then what's left over, you can peanut butter spread based off of a priority stack to everybody else. And some people are just going to have to wait if you don't have enough. But you're always going to have enough for you because you pay yourself first. Now, my dad is very stoic and often calm, cool, collected, and measured when he speaks. But every once in a while, something just sticks in his craw, and he gets on his soapbox, and he's got something to say. And on this particular night, he had something to say. He thought pay yourself first was one of the stupidest things he'd ever heard. Okay? That is putting it politely. He completely disagreed with that. He was running a different script. He said, no, I have all these commitments, I have all these obligations, and I need to pay them first, and then what's left over is for me and to support my family. Now, don't get it twisted. He knew he had to work extremely hard so that he could pay everybody else and that there would be a surplus left over. But he elevated those people who were responsible for everything going and moving and sustaining. He felt a deep, deep need to pay those people first and then himself last. Okay? Now, interesting enough, a couple years would go by and I and my brothers would get an opportunity to work in the business more formally, even though this wasn't even past college. And we would often go down to an annual meeting for that franchise where all the stores would come in and there'd be all these breakout sessions that they'd be going over all these various things. But there was a trade show where all of the vendors for that franchise would come, and they would come in and they would write orders for the year, and there'd be all these show specials. And so I got to work our booth because we had Eagle Optics, which was the precursor to Vortex, that sold binoculars. I could be in the booth and I'd be selling to all the different store owners. Now, right before you walked in to this trade show is a big easel and a big poster board right before you walk in the doors. And on that poster board, marked from 1 all the way down to 250, 300, are all those stores and their location and where they racked and stacked from a revenue performance standpoint, from the top store all the way down. And of course, one thing I noticed, and it was a source of pride for me as, you know, the son of my parents in their store was always usually number 1 or number 2. So I thought that was pretty cool. But in addition to that, when I was at the booth, I didn't quite have a photographic memory, but often I'd be working with the store. I knew which store they were, and I could kind of pinpoint where they were on that board. Were they one of the top stores, middle, towards the end? Now, if you've ever ran a carpool with kids, you know that if you're in the front driving, the kids kind of forget that you're there, almost like there's an invisible wall, and you get all the dirt. You find out all the things about your kids. Well, that's kind of the analogy that was happening when I'm at the booth and I'm writing orders, is those store owners would talk with one another and they just talk about everything, okay? And one thing I noticed, there was a lot of correlations between philosophy of those store owners and where they were on that board of performance. And it's too many to talk about in this one video. But in one particular things that corresponded very heavily were the store owners that would say, well, you got to pay yourself first. They inevitably were middle to low in the pack on the performance side. Now, there may have been somebody who snuck through there and was at the top. I certainly didn't meet them. Without question, you got to pay yourself first people, they were underperforming relative to their peers. And ironically, the people that were at the top consistently year over year, they ran the same playbook as my parents. You didn't pay yourself first, you paid all those people who helped elevate you, your employees, your landlord, those brands that sold you product on terms. You paid them first, and then what was left over, that was for you, okay? So that was the playbook that they were running. So now I want you to get this picture in your brain. I want to get you this picture of a leader, a business leader in your brain, and it looks like a pyramid. And at the top of that pyramid is the leader. And I want you to see them as Superman, Wonder Woman. They got that Superman pose, right? And they got their foot, right? They're stepping on something, on someone, okay? And they're running the playbook that everybody else in this pyramid is there to elevate me. I'm the top dog. I'm the center of the world. My employees, they're there to support me. Landlord, support me. Brands, they're there to support me. And I'm the top dog, okay? I'm gonna pay myself first. And then what's left over, I'll sprinkle it down to everybody else. But that's not the playbook my parents were running. That's not the playbook those best store owners were running. They were running something different. They were flipping upside down the pyramid, an inverted pyramid, okay? So I don't know if I can do it with my hands, but you know the inverted pyramid, that apex was not at the top, it was at the bottom. And their hands weren't like this, because you're here to serve me, and look at me, the big deal. Their hands were up like this, and their whole goal was to lift and elevate others. Employees, the landlords, they had the brands, they had their customers. They were there to lift and support them. And ironically, as a byproduct of that, they were lifted and elevated to the top of the pack, the best revenue generating performing stores. Isn't it interesting? We all want to be at the top. We all want to be at number one. But ironically, the way to go up is often to go down. The way to go up isn't to put yourself up above everybody else and step on them as you climb the corporate ladder of leadership and success. The way to get to the top is actually to go to the bottom and to serve and lift and elevate everyone else. Now, let's look at the carryover of this as it pertains to Vortex. Somebody who's going to run that playbook where it's the upside down pyramid, we call it upside down leadership, who's at the bottom there to lift and elevate everybody else. It would make sense that they would have a VIP, very important promise warranty that would take care of people before, during, and long after the sale. It would make sense when somebody calls in that they have their staff probably overstaffed by a Fortune 500 company standards, but they have it that way so when you call, you get a real human being who likes talking to people, is fast, is friendly, speaks the language. It would make sense that they have somebody on the phone that when you're in Puerto Rico and your binocular drops into some ravine and you can't get it, they're going to go, you know what? It's not going to help them for us to somehow wait for them to retrieve it and then get it back and then fix it if it's broken and then get it back to them. They're back from their trip. But I've got some dealers in Puerto Rico, and I bet you I've got one that's within 30 minutes to an hour, and I bet you if I call them, they can run that binocular out to that person while they're on their trip of a lifetime, get them a new one, and I can settle up later with the retailer, right? It would make sense that they're hiring those people because they have that philosophy of the upside down. They have the philosophy and the mentality that I'm here to lift and elevate others. I'm not here for them to lift and elevate me. And of course, what happened with Vortex? Well, I'll tell you, at one point, we were the smallest sport optics company in the world. We had just started. We were at zero. Nobody even knew we existed. Well, now we're heading into roughly year 10 of being the #1 sport optics brand in the world. We're actually the largest sport optics brand that's ever existed. Now, I am a little bit proud of that, okay? But really what I'm proud about is how we got there. Getting to #1, getting to the largest that's ever existed was a byproduct of running an upside down leadership playbook, not presenting ourselves as the apex at the top and you guys are all beneath us and you're here to serve me. No. We flipped it upside down. We were at the bottom and we were there to lift and elevate everyone else. So it makes sense when we're hiring or promoting somebody within, which is often the case, to a position of leadership where they're responsible for a team. They're responsible for more than just themselves. We are looking for somebody who naturally runs an upside down leadership playbook. We want to see already that they have the mentality of lifting and elevating others, not just performing for themselves and everybody there is to serve them. There's a place for high performers, okay? High performance is great. High performance and being a high-performing team leader is a different skill set. I love to throw in obligatory sports analogies, and here's one for you, okay? Let's go to the sport of baseball. Let's say you're on the team and you're the home run hitter, okay? What's your job? Your job is to hit home runs, okay? And when you hit home runs, it feels good, all right? And you get a lot of affirmation and validation from that. But now you're a team leader and you're responsible for the baseball team, okay? Now, is your job to hit home runs? Maybe a little bit. Really, your job is to help other people hit home runs. Your job is to help other people hit home runs. Your job is to lift and elevate others. And in turn, as a byproduct, you will be lifted and elevated up, and so will your organization. Now, the thing I want to leave you, and I want you to be thinking about this. I want you to be thinking about your life, okay? And the leaders in your life who've been the most influential. After all, John Maxwell says leadership is influence. Nothing more, nothing less. So in your life, who's had the most influence? In your life, who do you want to follow the most? If you think about history, okay, go back in time. Who are the leaders that were the most significant? Who were the leaders that were the most influential? And let me ask you, what kind of leadership playbook were they running? Were they running the standard pyramid where they're at the apex and everybody there is to serve them? No. Those leaders usually flame out. I'll bet you in your life, the leaders who had the most influence, they were running an upside down playbook. They weren't focused on going up. They were focused on going down to lift you up and elevate you up. That's the type of leaders we're looking for at Vortex. That's the type of leadership that took Vortex to 0 to number 1. And I think in your life, if you seek to get to the top, the answer isn't to climb and step and scratch and claw to get there. No. It's a contrarian way. The way to get up is to go down and lift and elevate others up. Listen, guys, movements are built on connection. If this resonated, share it and join the conversation. Hit that subscribe button or check the show notes where you can follow me on all my socials. Or check out more about the movement at vortexcare.com. Let's build something rare together.